And I just want to welcome our guest, also esteemed and famous in some quarters, Dina Waik.
Thank you.
And I'm just gonna just say that, like, it's really gracious of you to take time to come tonight. I know that you are a member of TEECC, but I also know that you know, you haven't been attending for a while, and because you've got a lot of other things on the go. And so just really grateful to you for taking the time to come and share with us. The format tonight is that I'm gonna, I promised Dina that she would not have to like prepare anything. So I'm gonna interview Dina, and I would invite, as the interview goes along, if questions come up for anybody in the audience, I guess, please put them in the chat, and I can certainly, as we go, ask Dina your questions as well, where it makes sense, and any questions that are in there, we will definitely ask and get responses to those things. That sound reasonable to everyone? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Okay, so Dina, I want to start off by just saying, tell us a little bit about, yeah, well, tell us that, you know, your give us an overview of your project. Like what is EENUF? What is it?
Okay, so I haven't asked you how, just EENUF was her name, and so it's a good one. So this started probably, when did Daniel Taylor speak at TEECC? In March. And I think Rose was the one that was moderating, and he inspired me to take action. I had been starting to see how our supply chains were being compromised by COVID, and realized, of course, that food security is becoming more and more important. And it suddenly just occurred to me that this is a nice, tangible project. It's not nice, it's a legacy project. It felt like it would be something that I could leave behind, and hopefully it would, you know, continue onwards. You know, I said to everyone that when I die, they should put a bench under a tree with my name on it in this community garden. Although we've determined not to call it a community garden, which is a kind of an interesting thing. It's an urban farm. So EENUF stands for End Neighbourhood Urban Farm. And so we made a distinction to ourselves. Okay, so let me start. So I became impassioned with this idea that this is something I wanted to do. And during COVID, I had been doing walks to get out of the house, but I wanted to avoid the Danforth. So I took a different route very close to my home on Oakcrest Avenue on the way to Maine. And lo and behold, I saw a sweet little orphan plot that didn't look like anyone was using it. It had been abandoned. It was darling. And I thought, oh, wouldn't that be nice? And so I thought, okay, let's start moving this ahead. Now I've already got good relationships with our city councillor, Brad Bradford, because I've been working with him on Metrolinks and on other issues. And so I approached his office and I said, guys, can you help find, you know, we want to do this. So I sent them an email, and at the same time, I blitzed Facebook, every page that I could find. So there are urban agriculturists, and there's Food Share, and there's all kinds. I did research on what community gardens were in Ward 19. And I pushed the agenda just as much as possible on social media. And lo and behold, I got around 20 people responding to me saying, sure, we're interested. Of those 20, probably 10 are solid, which means that they come to meetings, they're involved. And one of the first things I did, is bring all the people together with two people who had established gardens already, for them to speak to us about their experience. One on church land and the other one on city land, because each one of them is different. If we go for city land, we have to jump through lots of hoops, but we then get funding. Whereas if it's on church land or on, for example, Toronto housing land, these are all lawns that were once big lawns, but now people have an appetite to grow food on them. And so we invited a woman called Erin, who had started a community garden at a United Church on Kimburn to talk about her experience. And then another woman who I approached, Daniel Taylor, he couldn't make it. And he suggested a woman called Lisa Cates. And she's involved in an organization called Roots something. And she got money from Heritage Canada to put a community garden in at Ashbridge Estate on Queen Street. And they supply Moss Park Farmers Market. And they came and they addressed these group of disparate 20 people who hadn't met but were interested. And it was quite illuminating, and it was good to hear from them. And so we've been meeting every 2 weeks since, I say, around March. Yeah, maybe around June-ish kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think we've got a solid group. Then we started looking at the orphan plot, which we've found out is Oak Crest 20. Oh, let me show it to you. Do you want to see it? Is this a good time to show? Okay. So first of all, that's an aerial shot. Can you see that? Oh, no.
I'm seeing it. Yeah.
Wait, I have to do screen share, don't I? Share.
Yeah.
See, can you see that?
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah. Are you able to zoom in a little bit?
We can.
Okay. Let me see if I can zoom in. There you go. How's that? Right. So this is, if you notice, these are the train tracks at Woodbine, just north of Gerard. This is the orphan plot, and it's right opposite a parquet. Now, I don't know if you know this area, but this is steep. This is a steep slope going down to Woodbine. There are stairs here, so it's a cul-de-sac, and there's a buffer zone, and then the train tracks. So so that's what that looks like. I think it's approximately, as you can see by the measured distance, it's approximately 86 square meters. And there's a little bit more if we want to use the slope for pollinator garden, then we might be able to get more. It's quite infested with dog strangling vine. So if any of you know that, it's just an impossible weed, very invasive. If you'd like, I'm going to show you just a 30-second video of the plot itself. So that's an aerial view from on top. And let me now show you, this is the plot itself. Can you see that? So you see the slope there, and there's Woodbine. Now it's already been fenced, and that's Oak Crest. So we did, as a group, we did go to a few sites. We went to look at Norwood and a few others, but we decided, the group as a whole decided that this is the one they wanted to see, to really move on. And I think mainly because we're all a bit of an introverts, and it's a nice, it's tucked away. Let me see if I can make this bigger. No way.
Minimize the other.
Sorry guys, you've gone very small, but it doesn't matter. You can see me anyway, so it doesn't matter. So
Dina, what are we looking at here?
Nothing now, because I finished. I just can't see you.
So can we just stop sharing right now?
Yes. Oh, okay. So how do I do that? Let me see.
Oh, here, I'll stop for you.
Yeah, there you go. And so that's it. We've been pushing. Let me tell you, working with the city is like working with molasses. I found actually that Parks doesn't have any money. And of course, the city, they used to have a pollinate TO where they would fund pollinator gardens. And I believe that all that money is now dried up very seriously. Luckily for us, this plot we found out is orphaned, meaning that it was determined to be surplus in 2001, and nobody's bought it because you can't build on it. So the city has it, but nobody quite knows who it belongs to. We've checked with Metrolinx, with transportation, and with Parks. we made a bit of a mistake, and this is always good to know, is that we thought we might go for 2 plots, that plot and then a piece of the parquet on the other side. But we got into trouble with dog owners who use that, and we weren't going to fight with the residents, and the city wouldn't entertain it at all. If there were dogs or children using it, they wouldn't. But there is Ward 19 has got a very wonderful councillor who is very green. Brad Bradford is very supportive, and they may be able to find some funding as well.
Talk about design.
We haven't got to the design yet, and we haven't done a soil assessment yet because we're still trying to find out who this land belongs to. But I think we're at a point now that we've all determined it's abandoned, and we're hoping transportation will take it over because they have a little bit of funding for community gardens. I just want to say that what I found out is there are 2 kinds of community gardens. There are allotment gardens where everyone gets a plot of land and works their own. And there's a waiting list in Ward 19 of probably 10 or 12 people who want one of these plots, because there's a waiting list for another community garden south of us at Dundas and Coxwell. We're not going to be an allotment community garden. And that's one of the reasons we decided to call ourselves an urban farm, because we're all very serious about yield. This is not a hobby thing. This is not a little nice to have. We are going to need to have food security, and we're going to need to address this seriously. And in the same way as, the Second World War, everyone had victory gardens, we may need to contemplate that. Certainly when food becomes disrupted or supply chains become disrupted because of various reasons. We haven't determined what the percentage of yield would go to the food banks yet, but we will maximize as much as possible. And so we're looking at innovative ways of gardening. And one of the things that was very important to us is that we heard time and time again that you can't have one person pushing the agenda, because then when they go, the whole thing falls apart. And we heard that from 3 different community gardens. And so we're very committed to shared leadership, even though I'm pushing this stage, and I'm okay with it.
We do share the leadership.
We will share various stages of leadership, which means, for example, I'm pushing the application, but when it comes to design, somebody else is going to champion this. And then when it comes to, figuring out, crop rotation, it'll be somebody else. And, putting together the vermiculture will be somebody else. And so, we're all committed to that. And we have some excellent talent, and we've got people joining us all the time. Like there's a Facebook page for the Oakcrest Parquet, and I joined it because we haven't done a community consultation yet, and that's a big issue. And so there were rumors flying. We had asked someone, and somebody said someone suddenly on the Facebook page today, somebody said, did anyone hear that there's a community garden? They're going to take our parquet and maybe into the orphan plot. And I guess it was like the cat was out of the bag. Because every time we'd go to measure and stuff, I'd say to Deb, don't be conspicuous. We don't want anyone to know that we have an eye on this plot, but until we're ready to ask their permission.
So being there with a measuring tape was not good.
It was not a good idea. But anyway, we did approach someone through Mary Margaret, who was our city councillor, and she connected us to somebody who was part of the Friends. Anyway, long story short, we now have I told them that we had some ideas of this, and then somebody approached me from Malta to say, oh, my mother lives just down the road and she's an avid gardener and she's a senior. Would you be interested? I said, yes, of course. So she called me today. We had the best conversation. Sorry, as you can see, Bruce, you didn't need to ask me any questions. I'm sorry.
No, it's not much of an interview, but
sorry.
But it's still no. You're telling the story very well. I do have a question though. Like what so far would you say has been your biggest challenge, and what do you anticipate what has been your biggest challenge, and how firm are the plans at this point? I guess
Okay.
the 2 things I'd love for you to address. Yeah.
So bureaucracy. is the biggest challenge. You know, it's getting permits, it's getting people to move, it's getting city workers to figure it out. It's getting city workers not to be hostile towards us, because we had parks people who are really not interested in entertaining us. You know, they're tired, they're weary, you know, COVID is difficult for them. And, you know, so that was a challenge. But, you know, not a deterring challenge, mainly because we have a champion in Brad Bradford's office. If you don't, if, you know, you need to get the city councillor on board immediately for things to move, at least for them to, it's not that they did a lot, you know, if I look at it, we as a group have done a lot more than Peter Woodcock has achieved, but it gives an aura of, you know, this is, the city takes us a little bit more seriously when Peter says, can you please all be there for a site visit? You know, he was able to do that. I was not. So that's a challenge. And what was the second question, Bruce?
Well, how firm are the plans at this point? Is this confirmed as something that's going ahead at this point, or
over my dead body is happening? So this is happening. No, it's not just me. I mean, Deb can attest to the fact that we have a group of around 10 of us who are very serious about this.
Right.
We have a, you know, there's nobody else that owns that plot of land. But we have to take it to the next step. We have to do a soil assessment. You know, we have to figure out a design. We have to figure out funding. We have to find out.
Which we're going to do, which we'll be doing during the winter months. You know, I mean, we're not wasting time either. I mean, we're still meeting every couple of weeks. And for example, in a couple of weeks, we're going to start doing a shared viewing about a film about permaculture, because ideally we want to make use of some permaculture concepts.
What's nice is that, so what's nice is that we have youngins on, you know, like 20 somethings, and we have retirees. So, you know, we've got a nice gamut of kind of energy, expertise, you know, a nice skill set that might happen. It's firm, it will happen. There's no impediment here. I doubt very much the city's going to say no. It's been abandoned for 20 years. It's a surplus piece of land, but we need to get funding. We need to get water in there. We need to do a soil assessment. We will need to put we'd like to put rain gardens in. We want to put beehives in. We want to put houses for bats and birds. We're going to put a pollinator garden in, you know, that kind of thing. I want a barn cat. Deb says a coyote will eat it, but I like a barn cat there because, you know, but somebody said, are we going to have chickens? Sure. You know, what is nice.
Woodbine. Chickens on Woodbine.
What is nice is that how large is the space? The space is around probably 80, let's say 90 square meters. So can you figure that much? I did Google was in meters. So
some of it is on the
it's sloped.
Stuff at the top.
You know, ideally I would have liked that and 300 meters of the parquet because it's nice and flat. But I think that, you know, we let's make this a real gem. And then in a couple of years, if everything's going well, we might want to lobby again to see if we could get some more land. But, you know, I don't know what it takes to till and grow crops. You know, I'm going to be led when we get to that point of it. And as Janet said, you know, there will be disappointments. There'll be crops that we have to figure out how to keep squirrels and raccoons and rats out of things. Anyway.
That's the permaculture.
That's the and we want to use permaculture as much as possible.
Great. So, you know, I'm really hearing that this is a learning journey for you, and you know that it's a learning journey in that you didn't know what the process was from the city point of view, and it seems like there's quite a journey ahead in the sense that once you get the garden going, you know, there's lots to learn about actually just tending the garden and so on. Now, is that true for you personally? Is that true for the group as a whole? What's the spirit of that in the group as you're moving forward?
It's interesting. I think there are a couple of frustrated farmers I'm a frustrated farmer. I always say to Deb that I should have gone and lived on a farm when I was in my 20s. It's a bit late when I'm in my 60s, but so be it. But I think I am. And Jan, another person on the group, I think is also he wanted to be a farmer and never was able to buy the land. And so in some ways it's very satisfying on a small scale. We'll have our little farm and be able to work on it. None of us have been involved. There's one woman who is an agriculturalist who works in farming. Um, but we are all kind of a nice mix of environmentalists, uh, foodies. Like there's a subculture of people who grow food. And I'm sure Janet has kind of noticed that, certainly on Facebook. There's actually a lot of resources. Toronto Share is a agency that is funded by the Trillium Foundation to bring all the community gardens together. There is quite a bit of documentation and support. Now, there are various kinds of community gardens because I know that one of the women who is involved in Toronto Share is also running a therapeutic garden at CAMH. And so, there are different, Thorncliffe has their own community gardens, seniors places have, so various agencies use the gardens for various reasons. We're going to be using it for environmental and social justice, addressing food security for um, lower income and marginalized populations, as well as for ourselves.
Mm. Wonderful. There's a question here from Nancy. Is there lots of sun?
Well, this is it, is that we hope so. We may need to remove some trees. It's unfortunate, but true. There's one dead one. They're Chinese elms, so they're not natives, and but we may need to make more of that. But yes, this is, it's like, why is it's so slow? Because then we have to assess the site, and then we have to do a soil assessment. So all of those things are relevant. Yes, there should be enough light. It's facing south. It's north-south, facing the south, and there should be sufficient. And definitely, that's an important thing because Janet she knows what the challenges are to grow in shade.
As do we.
As do we.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned a couple of times now the next step is to get an assessment done, a soil assessment, and what other kinds of assessments
Well,
are needed?
we're meeting on Sunday at the site itself to start thinking about design. Well, we need to find out if this soil is contaminated and it hasn't been touched for 20 years, but we're not sure. If it is, we will have to use raised beds for veggies. But there's another interesting thing that we looked at is the whole notion of food forests. Um, and somebody said to me, "Oh, you're going to have to lock it up, I guess, because what if people steal the food?" And I turned around and said, "Well, those are the same people that we'd be giving it to at the food bank. So let them, as long as they don't vandalize, then let them take." But so food forests are places where people are invited to come in, sit down, and pick fruit or eat from where they are sitting. And the notion of not having a monoculture means that there'll be fruit trees, there'll be bushes, there'll be raspberries, there'll be vegetables, there'll be beehives, there'll be pollinators, there'll be rain gardens, there'll be all this in this ecosystem, which we hope to make. Who knows what we'll do, but
which is why the design is going to be really important. That's
Yeah.
what we're going to be working on.
Well,
How to
for-
set it all up.
Well, for example, I'm inspired by my Chinese neighbors. The best urban agriculturists, the best urban farmers is all we have to do is look at the old Chinese who grow huge amounts of yield from tiny little, so I've been looking at them and seeing how they structure them,
We saw one person on Eastland that had planted, I can't remember what they planted, but they had bales of hay and they had planted stuff in it. So people are creative.
and also innovative. So I think we want to, we might want to do horizontal growing, which is now very you know, very trendy and, but, you know, has some basis. So, but we'll be doing things like trellises. We'd like to be able, so, you know, Janet says that the squash and zucchini needs a lot of space, but what if we, you know, we hang them so that they, you know, there are all kinds of things that we're going to need to do to look at that, but that I won't be leading that as much.
So I guess I'm curious, who is going to do the assessments for you? Does that cost money? Is that something you need fundraising for?
Oh.
Yeah, tell us a
Thank you
little bit
so
about
much.
organizing that process and what's involved with that.
Don says you're making me hungry. No, it's a $40 assessment. We send it off to University of Guelph. And we'll get an assessment of, you know, what's in the soil, what it needs. I'm very excited. You know what? My pet thing is going to be the worms. Like, I'm super interested in doing vermiculture because I think I've seen I volunteered at a community garden this summer just to get my hands dirty and see what the hell I'm talking about, what I'm getting myself into. And they do vermiculture, and their casings, it's wonderful. It's clean. There's no smell. They can winter outside if you insulate the bins, and they make the most amazing high quality soil. So, but I'm hoping that everyone has a little pet project like that. Somebody's going to be super interested in the trellises. Somebody else is going to be super interested in horizontal or in mushroom growing. There's somebody who's interested in mushrooms. And so, you know, we'd like to be able to bring expertise, share expertise, definitely share leadership. It's very important that everything doesn't rest on the shoulders of one person, because if they leave, then the place falls apart.
And who are you going to for the design? Is that something you're going to do amongst your group, or are you going to get professional help and advice for that? How will you go about that?
Well, it's interesting. We haven't really we're going to be starting the design process now that we're pretty, you know, let's say 85 to maybe 90% sure we'll get this plot. We're going to start that. So on Sunday, we're going to start talking about it. I've invited Ting, for example, to, if he will come and give us some advice about rain gardens. We do, and we're going to train ourselves on permaculture. So, by the way, to all the women, there is a women's guild that will offer you a 1-year free permaculture online course, which I'm taking. So know that that's happening, and that permaculture, and maybe you know, is a lifestyle kind of philosophy, which I think is very in tune with environmental growing.
Just sorry, but there's a really good on the permaculture thing. There's a good movie on Netflix called Big Little Farm,
which we saw, which is wonderful. Did you see that? Look, they didn't know what they were doing, and they got someone who so I'd like to use expertise as much as possible. My answer is, when it comes to the design, you know, it's going to be very important that we get the infrastructure done correctly. And so we'd like to get, you know, I'm going to, again, I can't, this is where we will be gathering expertise from the rest of the group, not just from me. Around that. But again, you know, some of the things, I think what I want to say, and I think it's important, it's about the whole notion of a tangible project. You know, as an environmentalist, sometimes it's very soul destroying to you know, keep writing the petitions, keep doing the flyers, keep, you know, and to keep our spirits up when it's hard to see the results. And I have to say that the satisfaction of seeing something grow is so, and Janet can probably speak to this as well, is so profoundly satisfying. It just I'm it's the best kind of activism, because it's so I think it's going to be very satisfying. It's going to be soul destroying when all the raccoons come in and eat all our whatevers. I'm going to want to kill them. It's going to be hard to be a pacifist to the raccoons and squirrels.
We'll
and
plan with that too, with
but
the netting that we've
yeah,
seen, and,
yeah. So we have to, you know, we'll have to figure it out.
All right, I really I want to open it up to the group here for questions. Yeah, Kathy, can't hear you, Kathy.
Yep, sorry. Thanks. Thank you. It sounds really exciting, and yeah, it sounds like an amazing and beautiful, and I love what you were saying about a tangible project, a tangible, edible project. What could be better than that? My question is just as you're looking to find ways to design the garden, you speak well of some neighbors, some Chinese gardeners that you know that are very knowledgeable. Have you and I put this in a private question to you too, but have you considered, are you able to have consult with them to see what they think? Because in case they can work their gardening and knowledge magic on this plot.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, I think so. I've approached a couple, but the English is very poor, and I don't think they understood what it is that I want. But yeah, we could. I mean, I would definitely do that. I think that you know,
Is a translator what's lacking here?
we'll figure it out. Yes, but that is definitely a notion. I think it's an important one because they're already doing it so well, and their infrastructure is good. There's also an underground permaculture subculture here in Toronto. There's a woman in Scarborough who's doing roof gardens, and so we might ask her about design as well. Again, we haven't got there yet, and I loathe to speak without consulting. You know, we haven't. You know, we haven't matured to that, but that's going to be the fun part, I think. You know, in the next step, pushing the application, writing applications, you all know is a pain, and dealing with bureaucrats and whatever. But design and being creative and figuring out where to put things, I think that's going to be a really fun project. But we haven't got there yet. But thank you, Kathy. Definitely on board with the consulting with everyone.
Okay, I see a question from Rabia.
So this sounds amazing. I'm so impressed by the work that you've done and the initiative you've taken and how you've worked with the city councilors. It just really sounds great. And thank you so much for sharing it with us. So I wanted to, it sounded like you were saying your vision is for the food to be for marginalized people.
So a percentage, was that the question?
Yeah, and then there was a follow-up where I have that question for you. So if I wanted to hear a little bit more about that. And then also there's a young woman who is really passionate about urban farming, who's done something interesting and a little different, but she's just gone ahead and found land, and it's up by Downsview Station, and she's got a Facebook page. If you're not already connected to her, it's called Sundance Harvest. So it's grassroots organic urban farming. Mm-hmm. And it's for BIPOC and marginalized people. And she's just kind of like motored ahead and gone ahead and done this, and is growing huge amounts of food and is making it available in really low cost ways. Mm. So it sounds really compatible with what you're doing.
Oh, it's wonderful. I've written it down. Thank you so much, Rabia. This is why we need to be networking and talking to each other and chatting away and sharing ideas, because everyone knows everyone, and it becomes this wonderful synergy. So thank you. I'll look into that. And because we'll learn from her. And you know, even little things like economy of scale. You know, if all of us get together to buy hay, it's going to be cheaper for all of us. If we all decide to get manure, it's going to be easier for all of us. You know, so it behooves us to be networking with each other. So you know, definitely the community garden, a percentage of its yield will be going to food banks, which is why we're also very cognizant that we don't want to harvest, you know, esoteric savories and arugulas and lovages, because you know, nobody knows what to do with those, or they do, but it's nice. But what people need is onions and potatoes and squash and tomatoes and cucumbers and you know, and garlic, you know, the things that we eat. And so we're going to put an emphasis on that. so that we can do that. I mean, the food banks, the fresh produce that they get, is far, few and far between. And if we can contribute to that, it's what we're doing it for, kind of thing,
Yeah, Janet.
Yeah, two things. There's a store on Kingston Road. I think it's called the Flower Shop. I got some really good, it's opposite or somewhere near Kingston Road United Church on the opposite side of the road. And it's run by a Chinese family, and they were very helpful when I went, just wandering around in March, it must have been April or so, looking for seedlings, which were very hard to get. So he explained all about how to grow zucchini. It was very helpful. So he was very, very nice. And I was just going to do my show and tell. Here's my butternut.
Amazing! Amazing! It's amazing.
And that right there,
Wonderful.
that's damage before what the squirrels got at. And I can tell you about how to keep squirrels away. Deer netting is wonderful. So I managed to keep them off by putting deer netting around it. So these are not quite ripe yet, so we've just got to wait a bit. So, but it's full. We cut one and it's just full of seeds. But this one plant takes a lot of space, like, I don't know, 3 square feet, because it spreads out all over the place. It has big, big flowers, which are really pretty, but it has a long, long vine, and it takes a lot of space. So somehow you got to grow it up if you know how to do that. Yeah.
I mean, I think we activists can often get burned out, and we need some projects that will give us pleasure and I think tangible results, so that we feel that we are accomplishing something. I can't speak for you guys, but I know for myself, it's a slog, and it often doesn't feel like it's making any difference. And I'm not saying that everyone needs to go out and do community gardens, although I think we should and we need to. And it'll probably be the way of the future as food gets more expensive because of fires and because of droughts and because of climate crisis. What do I want to say? I guess just it's tangible and it gives you pleasure. And I think that then gives me some juice to do other things.
There's a big discussion here about don't grow fruits. I'm looking in the and what to do about raccoons.
Yeah. This is all good. I'm copying it.
Yeah, see, they were talking.
Yeah.
Fruit. I had the same experience. Yeah, but Kathy's saying about.
Well, I'll tell you what really works, and that is deer netting. We got, I don't know, 1/2-inch square just from Lowe's. It's very flimsy. I heard it from a neighbor. That's why I did it. It's very flimsy netting, and the squirrels don't like to get their claws in it. I put it over bulbs. I did it. They can still get through it if they really want to, but we put it all around. We didn't have to dig it in or anything. We just put it all around, and we didn't have any problem with squirrels, raccoons, or skunks, or a possum. Possum's another thing. Yeah.
I mean, see, everyone has gardening tips and everyone quite likes talking about gardening. And so it's also, it's an easy project to get people involved in. And so and so TEECC, we will be very happy if anyone from TEECC would like to come. And there's going to be all kinds of different, you don't have to come to every meeting. It's like TEECC, you come and you go. Some people may want to just come for once or whatever, but there's something very satisfying, and we need to have our hands dirty in the soil. It's good for us.
We'll invite people on digging days and things like that.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a question I have. So if someone is keen to get involved, how could they get on board with the team?
Oh, just email me. We have a Facebook page that has just been started, and we encourage you to be to join it. We're East End Neighbourhood Urban Farm, and EENUF, or just email me, and I'll put you on the mailing list. we won't be breaking ground until the spring. But now is a exciting time because we're going to have to get sponsors. We're going to have to figure out funding. We're going to have to do a soil analysis. We're going to have to do design, so that we can and I don't know if we will have time to do some soil prep now, which will be probably to put down cardboard like Janet did. It's because we've got dog strangling vine, and it's in some ways I think we are not going to be able to even deal with it because there's so much of it all around, which is a problem. I was involved in a Friends of group for our local ravine, and it's definitely invasive down there as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I guess another question is, of those things that you've named, is there room for TEECC to support with fundraising or something like that?
You, honey. I don't know yet. I mean, it's so preliminary yet that we have no idea. I think the next step, now that we've determined the land and we're kind of pretty sure that we have it, we have to move on to the next steps, which is determine sponsorship, and we're working with transportation. They have a little fund for community groups who want to use land that is under the auspices of the transportation department to do and I don't know how much of it, but we're hoping that they will adopt us, and then we'll work with them. Thank you so much, Bruce. I don't know. I think we should do our expertise and then franchise it and get there's lots of orphan plots all over the city, all over our ward, all over the East End, that is just crying out for some love. TLC. It's a lot of work, and all the community garden people told us it's a lot of work. But at the same time, work is work. What can we do? We're all working hard anyway on our various projects.
But we'll let them know about the fundraising.
But we'll let you know. Thank you for Bruce for asking.
Great. Kathy?
I was going to say, like, it's true that it's a lot. Like, I was going to first ask, of your 10 solid people that are, and all your group, do many of them or most of them live within the proximity of the plot?
Yeah, it's very important. People don't want to be traveling. And actually, I had a meeting with another community garden coordinator in the ward who said you should have at least one person who lives a few minutes away just to check up, or if you've forgotten to do watering, or if somebody, whatever, or if there's, somebody calls you to say somebody's vandalizing, that you can run over. And so, yeah, most of us do live in the area. And that was a big issue, that it was all so it's pretty much walking distance for most of the core.
Well, only because I can't help but think in everything and anything that I've been learning recently about building community, and like, it's a very different experience if the thing that's being talked about is like right over there. It's just down the street or 1 block away, or it's a place that you walk your dog every day, carefully, but you walk your dog every day, or it's a place that you notice if you take your daily walk, you run into the neighbors and you start to meet people in your community. So I can't help but think, especially in these COVID times, but beyond the COVID times, it's just so exciting. There's so many things about this project that build community.
Absolutely. And we'll have children.
So again, even if you were saying, what you were saying, there's so many orphan plots. The first thing that comes to my mind is, where's the map of the orphan plots? Like, because, if you're keeping notes, and I bet you are, of every step of your process, and if there's some kind of map or something that points out, hey, this is working for us, this is what we've been doing, it takes a lot of work, but it's totally worth it, I've gotten to know all these people in my community, just to let you know, here are other places that if you decide, if this excites you and interests you, you can do it too.
Yeah. No, very true. And that's why I think networking is very important. But, you know, that's why if we, and we are building on other people, we're not reinventing any wheels. Everything has been done. We've got wonderful documentation. I can share, there's a Community Garden 101 that was put together by by Food Share, which really does kind of speak to that. And yeah, I think it's a really it's, you know, the whole notion of hyperlocality is very important. We need to be really local. We need to be knowing who, we need to be resilient through knowing our neighbors and creating very small, tight communities. Yeah,
And it
so
will give children some good learning too.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only
Pardon?
thing is, don't fight with the dog owners, because they are a vicious bunch. And I'm one of them, because you know, we had it, but really, ooh.
Oh, she didn't hear about the children.
Oh, but
Oh, sorry.
well, no, but that makes me think of another thing is that if there's an idea, if there's an area, and again, I'm just kind of like brainstorming, but if there's an area someplace near your community garden that could also be a dog park, fenced-in area, then if people want to come and work on the garden, their dogs can run around safely without anybody's happiness being intruded upon.
Mm.
And it's also like it's a kind of a win-win welcome area for everybody. Just a thought.
Well, I mean, you know, often they talk about rest areas, that one of the things you need to build in is, you know, is a place where people congregate. I want to mention one more thing, and I think this is a lovely thing, that we're going to be doing a First Nations tribute, in that we will have a corner that we grow the Three Sisters as a way of a land acknowledging that, you know, that without the expertise of First Nations, all the white settlers would have died within the first winter. So forget it. You know, anything that we know about how to live on this land, you know, the white settlers learned from First Nations. So, you know, we'll kind of ensure that that is also there as a kind of a learning moment, and as a, you know, reflective moment.
Great. Any other questions? There've been a number of comments here in the chat about deer fence. There's a veritable, like almost like a Wikipedia kind of entry developing here in the chat about deer fence. So you can check that out if you want to know more about that. I guess I had a question earlier, but it's not coming back to me now. Anyone else have any other burning questions for Dina? Yeah, how are you going? Oh, yeah, actually, and Ting had an earlier question of when does ENUF meet? And now he's put up a couple of questions here. Any plans to promote your garden once it's started?
Well, who
So-
would we promote it to?
Well, that's a good question.
Well,
Like,
we've talked about the importance of even signage, because people will just be walking by. It's right on Woodbine. And, you know, there can be on the signs, you know, the Facebook page and, you know, things like that, but definitely to environmental groups. But we want people to know who is involved. When we went and checked out the one at Asbridge's estates, they had really good signage, and then they had the logos of the different groups that had, you know, somehow supported. So, you know, TEECC is supporting us. We'll put the TEECC logo on it, and that advertises as well. Then it's also thanking. We're checking into somebody knows somebody that works at Lowe's. I mean, we're going to need lumber. We're going to need, you know, if we're building for the vines to grow vertically, all of that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
So I do have a microphone with me, so I'll just ask it directly. I think my idea was definitely like how to get the story out and sort of how to share the knowledge and experience you've gathered, maybe in like a year from now.
Well, I'm a little humble, Ting, because we're not doing anything innovative or new. We're just learning from other community gardens that have done it. So you know, Toronto Food Share is there, Urban Farmers is another one. So, you know, and I don't know if we need to promote it. I mean, you see, it's interesting. At the very beginning, we knew that we didn't want to put too much of our own time and effort into training and education. We actually, you know, so some community gardens will do that. They'll kind of do a, you know, they'll do training and education for people. They'll show them, they'll do guided tours of it. We just want yield. And so we decided early on that we weren't going to be spending too much time being, you know, opening up to the community to do training for kids or whatever, but we wanted to grow the food.
Right.
But there are others that, you know, incorporate that kind of, you know, training and pedagogical moment, both for kids as well as for adults. I don't think that's going to be an emphasis, you know, like a focus of ours.
Mhm.
Okay, Kathy's got her hand up. Yeah.
I was going to say, Dina, and thanks for that question, Ting. And Dina, while I think that I hear what you're saying about um, educational, like, and curriculum and teaching guides and that kind of thing, it's not so much of an interest. At the same time, I think it's really, really critical and essential that you tell the story of your experience, so that every step of the way you documentation is really, really important. So even if you just, not just, if I hope that you will consider just in whatever way you want to do it, if it's a blog or a vlog or a newsletter or whatever, but that you chronicle what you're experiencing, what you're doing, how you're working together as a group, and what's happening. It doesn't have to be long, it doesn't have to be fancy, but you know, we're human beings. We live and thrive on stories, and we're inspired by stories. So I hope that you will tell this story to, and just put it out there, because if you put it out there, I guarantee you it's going to be found by somebody that is starting to go, hey, I wonder if ... in the same way that you were inspired by Daniel.
Yeah, no, very true. And you know, hopefully, you know, yeah, we never know where. I mean, really, the essence is, because everyone has gardening advice and it's all important, but the essence is you never know where your inspiration is going to come from, that you never know what one word is going to say that is going to land at exactly the right place and inspire us all to do something, you know, out of the ordinary and amazing. So I guess that really is a kind of a moment of inspiration, because, you know, that we can all take away from this, and that to be, and that we need to feed our souls, you know, because the environmental and social justice is hard on us. It's hard work, and we often don't see the tangible effects of what we do, because it comes in generations, or it comes in years time. And so I encourage you all to have at least one passion project that gives you, you know, pleasure in immediate, you know, tangible results to keep you going.
And I would add, as just as you said, it comes in generations or in years time, but I also think it comes in stories day to day.
Janet, yeah.
This this came from a child science project. So a mother around the corner was thinking of something to do with her kids in March break, actually. So she had her kids plant, just start seeds in egg cartons. So that's what this is from that. So, like, you know, and that was just like one. Well, I don't know. I guess maybe there were 6 or so, and one did really well. But that's another way of getting people involved, and it's super simple. And because you do need seedlings to get, you know, seeds and seedlings to get going. Yeah, and that's an easy way to involve kids.
Well, and I can promise you that, I mean, you know, this whole idea about the importance of storytelling is, of course, why we have the speaker series, and why we invited you to come tonight, because we know it's important that people know what you're doing. This is how you're going to gain allies and supporters and collaborators. So, definitely, I think it would be a good idea for us to have a follow-up session, maybe, you know, in the late spring or something, and you can let us know, you know, about the actually breaking soil and how things are going at that point, so we can have an update. And
maybe
of course,
champagne involved.
absolutely, yeah. And we'll be regularly, we can be sharing updates in the newsletter as well. So we'll help to keep the community informed about what you're doing. So those who are interested and inspired to follow in your footsteps will know how to reach you and contact you from the community. So absolutely.
Oh, how nice. It was lovely chatting with everyone. I mean, I know pretty much so many of you, and it's just been very fun. Nice.
Wonderful.
See what Ting said.
But it's, yeah. Mhm.
Well, that seems like an awesome place to kind of wrap up the speaker series event tonight with Dina. And so I just really want to thank you again for turning up tonight, coming out and to share your story, taking that time. And your energy and enthusiasm is very infectious, and I'm sure that
This is a TEECC baby, if you like it or not, because it happened in TEECC. So like
Absolutely.
conception was at TEECC. So I figured that, this is a TEECC baby, and we should all kind of take some credit for that, which is lovely.
yeah, and I agree. Let's all little pat on the back for
All of us.
for being a part of this, and let's hope that this is the first of many such TEECC babies to be seeds to be planted throughout the community. So
Excuse
Don?
me. Yeah, Bruce, you just said something that rang a bell. From the beginning, I've wondered, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who's wondered, what is TEECC for? What are we doing? What's the meaning of life? And no, seriously.
Inspiration.
And I wonder if what we are becoming is maybe it's a kind of early incubator.
Look at that.
Maybe it's a kind of group, I was going to say place, but we aren't anywhere, where we bring interesting people doing interesting things, and seeds get scattered, to continue the metaphor. And people like Dina and Deb begin something. Others who are working on something find resources and information to help them continue. So some people see it's a kind of a community incubator. Is that what we're doing?
I do think it's definitely inspiring. I mean, sometimes you can just go to a meeting and just it gets you thinking about something. That's pretty much what happened when Dina was listening to Daniel. I keep wanting to say Daniel Day, to Daniel Taylor. So I think that, or we could just say that we're fertilizer, No.
I think we should get the bullfrog people in and they'll come and speak, I think. And that might be a good thing, because that's a good speaker to have. And I think we might get quite a few people.
I think it's a good question, Dawn. What are we going to, what are we? I think we might be many different things, but this story certainly points to that as a potentially rich possibility, like, to be, to help get seeds planted. It's not necessarily our work to, see all of these things through. We trust that others will show up to tend what starts to grow from those seeds. But if we keep planting those seeds, we can imagine that good things will happen in the community that might not have happened had we not, we weren't doing what we're doing right now. So
I didn't mean to hijack, Dina and Deb, your presentation and to cut you off at the end because
No, you didn't. Don't worry. No, it's fine. We're done. And yeah, these are good questions. But I mean, we don't even need to think about them because they're just happening. Yes, we did
That's the
incubate this
best.
one, and next one we'll do something else. But I like the idea of the speakers. You know, it's always good to bring people in, and I think it's a fruitful, you know, it's a fruitful and a nice service to the community.
It's organic.
means it's full of poo.
I hope not. Anyway.
Everyone, you all have a fecund imagination here. So.
Anyway, so have a nice evening. Are
Yes, you too.
Thank you.
Are you guys hanging around, or are we done?
We'll stick around and I think talk a little bit of following up on some of the stuff that we've been working on around buildings. You're welcome to stay and be part of that, of course.
No, I think I'm going to go for a walk. I think it's going to be raining later on, and I want to get my steps in.
Okay. That
So
sounds
thank
like
you
a
so
good
much.
plan.
It's always nice seeing you guys. Be well.
Thank
Actually,
you.
not guys. I'm
Dina,
trying to
Deb.
change. I'm trying to find a gender neutral way of saying that, not to say you guys, because it's not
Oh, right.
gender neutral. So I keep tripping myself, but I'm going to be more conscious to say, I think folks, I think I'll just say bye, folks. How's that?
Well,
Yeah,
thank you, everyone.
Solve that
Yeah.
Yeah,
problem.
thank you for
Everyone.
joining us.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you
Bye,
so
everyone.
much.
See you soon.
Bye.
Mhm.